in Nigeria, morning in the US. Today we'll be discussing the topic emotional intelligence. So how does it relate to leadership? How important is emotional intelligence to your leadership skill set? So we understand that leadership is not just a standalone skill. So to leadership, we have communication, we have role modeling, we have a lot of other skills that, joined to the skill set. So, and one of the very important skill is emotional intelligence. So today we will be dissecting the topic emotional intelligence to see how it rates in your leadership skill. So with me today, I'll be having Nadalena and Mr. Abiodun Adeleke. So they will be the one explaining these terms and then how it relates to leadership. So before we get into the show proper, I would want to run through the citation of each of our speakers so we would know who we are relating with and how skilled and how knowledgeable they are in this field and how we can throw in questions to them. So first on my list, I'll be having Nadalena. So Nadalena is the founder and CEO of Rise Up For You, leadership and career confidence coach, and she's a two-time TEDx motivational speaker. As a college professor and a former top executive for an educational corporation, Nada works with the fusion of education, empowerment, and leadership. And she has coached classes of about 50,000 individuals all around the world on self-empowerment, career strategy, and soft skills. So Nada has featured on several platforms, several platforms, such as the TEDx Talks, the Female Quotient, the California Human Resources Conference, the Wonder Woman, and many, a long list, an endless list of others. So Nada holds a 40 under 40 professional award in the Orange County and in California, and she holds the Women of Influence for Entrepreneurship in 2020. You would agree with me that Nada has a very rich citation, and it's such a honor having her on the platform. And alongside her, we would also have Mr. Abiodun Adeleke. And Mr. Abiodun Adeleke is a social advocate, is a public speaker, and is an author and a playwright par excellence. He is an information technology professional with years of experience in system engineering and information security. His passion for social and economic change has led to the founding of the Golden Oasis Spring Foundation, which is hosting this program, by the way. So the Golden Oasis Spring Foundation is a non-profit organization that is dedicated towards the fight against poverty and providing economic empowerment for indigents within Nigeria. So it's such an honor having both of you on this platform. I cannot wait to actually learn so much. So while I'm actually a host anchoring the event, I have my notepad here, pen, of course, to definitely jot a lot of nuggets that will be dropped on the platform today. So now to kick off, I would want to hear from Nada's perspective. What do you think is emotional intelligence, really?
Yeah, it's a really great question. Thanks for asking, and it's an honor to be here as well. Honestly, I can say truthfully that every single challenge that we see today that stems from people, it all comes from emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is going to be the key. So communication, leadership, confidence, conflict management, anything that is related to people and their interactions, emotional intelligence is really going to be the key and the most important factor. So emotional intelligence is the ability to understand, manage, and influence your own self, your own emotions, but it's also the ability to be aware and influence and be conscious of your communication and your behavior with other people and their feelings. So that might sound very simple, but it's actually very difficult. And there's about 18 little competencies, little buckets that fall under emotional intelligence that most individuals really, really struggle with. So just in a really quick recap, there's 4 pillars to emotional intelligence: self-awareness, so you being aware of yourself; self-management, so how you manage yourself; social awareness, So how you're aware of other people, empathy, diversity, like cultural awareness. And then the fourth one is all things leadership. And under those 4 pillars are another 18 competencies. And that umbrella makes emotional intelligence.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for that, that detailed yet succinct explanation of what emotional intelligence is. So I was able to pick out that there are 4 major pillars of emotional intelligence where we can peg most of the elements of emotional intelligence. And under each of these pillars are several other branches. So thank you very much for that. So I want you to shed light on certain things that I can, as a person, that I can observe in other people and feel like this person is emotionally intelligent in that sense. So what are the things to look out for in people? Because like you said, every single people related problem that we have in the world is hinged on emotional intelligence. So that means if every single person is emotionally intelligent, then we'll have a very reduced rate of human related issues. So how can I see somebody and feel like, okay, I think I want to be related, or I want to have something to do with this person because this person is emotionally intelligent? So what are the things to look out for to be able to pick out that quality?
Yeah, I mean, in general, most individuals are strong in one of the 4 pillars that you mentioned. So self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. So you'll find people, for example, that are maybe strong in one pillar, but maybe they need more support or work in another pillar, right? So you might have a leader, for example, that is a really good mentor. Remember, maybe they're very empathetic, they're very kind, right? But they might struggle with confidence. Maybe they don't feel amazing about who they are. So their pillar 1, it needs work, but their ability to empathize and be kind to their team is strong. So it just kind of depends where people are. But in general, I would say that somebody that has strong emotional intelligence is somebody that is aware of themselves. So they know when something's going on with themselves, right? Somebody that can manage themselves. So when they do feel upset or when they do feel frustrated, they can control their stress and their emotion. That their stress and their emotion doesn't come out and it doesn't like impact other people and create tension with other people. So managing yourself. Also somebody that's highly motivated and driven, right? Just because, not because anybody tells them, but they are a motivated individual is a strong sign of emotional intelligence. Of course, being kind and being authentic. And then lastly, the ability to lead. So the ability to coach, the ability to share, the ability to mentor, the ability to get people to do what you want them to do in a positive way.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was beautifully said. Thank you so much. I will start out of your answer to that question. I could bet that what your answer was going to be was the fact that, so I was going to ask this question that okay, so how do I put it? So some people believe that to be emotionally intelligent, all you need to do is be in contact with your emotion or with emotions of people. So they believe that to be emotionally intelligent, all you need is emotions. So once I know my emotions, once I understand other people's emotions around me, then I am emotionally intelligent. But then I was going to just conclude that that would also be your opinion. But the latter part of your answer, you made mention of confidence, you made mention of certain other things that are outside emotion. So I want you to shed more light. So do you actually believe that being in touch with your emotion is all you need to be emotionally intelligent?
No, not at all. So, and that's a really big question, Damilola, because many people think that they understand emotional intelligence because they're like, oh, it's understanding your emotions. Like that's just like the basic definition that they have in their mind. And it's actually not that at all. So remember how I was saying that there's 18 little buckets that fall under emotional intelligence?
Yes.
So being aware of your emotions is one bucket out of 18. That's it. So that means that there's another 17 buckets of emotional intelligence. So that's just one. So I'll break it down really, really fast. So in the first pillar, self-awareness, there's 3 buckets. There's emotional awareness, which is what we just, talking about. There's accurate assessment of yourself. So the way that you see yourself, people see you the same way. Okay? So, maybe somebody will tell you that you're stubborn and you say, I'm not stubborn. And then another person says, you're stubborn. And you're like, no, I'm not stubborn. And by the 5th time, someone's telling you something about yourself, and you're like, oh, maybe my perception of me is not accurate, right? So that's the second bucket, is accurate self-assessment. And the third bucket, which is the most important, is self-confidence. Okay. So the ability to believe in yourself and the ability to rise above anything. My team and I asked over 2,000 professionals in 2021 what their number one challenge was in the workplace. 83% of professionals said their number one struggle was self-confidence. Okay. So those 3 buckets are under the first pillar. That's just the first pillar, self-awareness.
Yeah, and we have
more to go. So then the second pillar is self-management, being able to manage yourself. So this is where we have stress management, so managing your emotions and stress. Okay, this is where we have integrity, so having ethics, values, morals, right, that are important for humanity. The third is growth mindset, so that you don't believe that your intelligence is fixed, like you believe you can learn. Okay, then we have achievement. Achievement means that you have a sense of standard for yourself. Okay, then we have optimism, which is that you're able to look at the world even with all of its challenges and find a solution. And then the 6th bucket is what we call intrinsic motivation. So this is where you are motivated internally just because. Yeah. Not because you get a paycheck, not because somebody tells you, but you just wake up in the morning and you're motivated to be your best for yourself. So you see, those 6 buckets are self-management. So now we hit 9 buckets and we still have half to go. Okay.
Yeah.
Those first 9 buckets are only about yourself. They don't have anything to do with people. So
About other people.
if you want to be a leader, you see how important these first 9 buckets are first, because if you're not confident, if you're not motivated, if you're not able to manage your emotions, how are you going to lead people, which is the last pillar, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Then we go to pillar number 3, which is social awareness. So this is empathy, all things empathy, being able to understand people and their challenges. This is diversity, equity, and inclusion. So being aware of other people's culture, right? Other people's ethnicities, other people's religions, and being able to adjust based off of what they need, because people have different cultures, different religions. You can't be the same with everybody, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yep. And then the last bucket is having a place of serving. So adding value to people and serving people, right? So like supporting and adding value and contributing. So that's number 3, social awareness. Okay.
Wow.
Social awareness is also where like public speaking comes in, right? So like, are you aware of like your posture and like how you move your body and all of that? Okay. Then the very last pillar is leadership. And under leadership, you have conflict management, you have coaching and mentorship, you have relatability, you have being solution oriented, you have managing conflict with your team. So that's the last bucket. So as you can see, all of that is emotional intelligence.
Wow. I mean, that has actually shaped my knowledge of emotional intelligence, because before now, if I was asked what emotional intelligence was, I would feel like it's a skill that a leader needs. But then from your explanation, leadership in itself, in its entirety, is actually a part of emotional intelligence in that sense. That would mean that if you are highly emotionally intelligent, you are a good leader in that sense, because it's a part of. Wow, thank you so much for that. I mean, explaining every pillar. Thank you so much for that detail. So moving on to Mr. Abiodun Adeleke. So I want you to widen this discussion and just give me, to start with, just give me your opinion of emotional intelligence. So we've had to learn a lot from Nada. So I want to see from your perspective what exactly is emotional intelligence.
Yeah, thank you. Well, basically, my perspective is not that very much different from Nada, because this is an established field. So definitely, I have to align up with her and agree with all that she has said. But just to add a few points that, at least, the overall goal is to make you a better person and also to make the people around you also a better person. But if at the end of the day, you are the only one at the receiving end, but the other person is at a kind of disadvantaged end, then it's not a good thing at all, because the purpose, the essence of the emotional intelligence is to make you a better person, and those that you also come around with to also be a better person, so that it won't become a kind of a manipulative experience.
Yes.
Okay, so wow, that was detailed. So now picking on the last words or the last sentence. So there was a recourse to manipulative tendencies. So, and I believe that there's been the argument that there is a correlation between highly emotionally intelligent people and manipulation. So it's as though because they understand their emotions and they understand the emotions of other people, they are able to play certain games to manipulate people. So do you think in that light, do you think highly emotionally intelligent people can be manipulative?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, one of the most potentially harmful traits of people with emotional intelligence is their ability to manipulate others' emotions for non-personal purposes, non-pro-social purposes, rather, because they have a deep understanding of all that it entails. Actually, some research shows that people who have the ability to be emotionally manipulative have high levels of emotional intelligence, but it doesn't mean that they are manipulative because they have high emotional intelligence. But the study found that most of these people who have the ability to be emotionally manipulated, they have high levels of emotional intelligence. So then that is a kind of indicator or pointer that actually people with high emotional intelligence, if care is not taken, if they are not intentional, they can also become manipulative emotionally.
Yeah, okay. Thank you
That was a
very
good
much.
question. That was a good question, Damilola.
Thank you so much, Neda. So, but then to push this forward, because we are seeing this in light of leadership, and then we understand that certain people become the leaders that their leaders were. So now I'll break that down. So I am a follower under your leadership. So I see you closely because a part of leadership is also role modeling. So I watch you closely. I'm learning leadership traits from you, such that when I come into the position of being a leader, I see you and I act you out. So I don't know if you understand what I just said, sir.
So is that for me or for Nada?
No, for you. For you. So
Okay,
I'm trying
okay,
to put
okay.
that question a bit further. So we understand
Yeah.
that people are reflections of their past leaders. So the way I was treated as a follower, I would most likely want to reflect that same treatment on my followers. I don't know if you understand that line
Yeah,
of thought.
exactly. No, leadership is influence. Leadership is
Yeah,
influence. I think it was John Maxwell that said that if you say that you are a leader, you are leading, and you look behind you, nobody is following you. You are just taking a stroll. So leadership
yeah.
is about influence. So, and we need to be careful the kind of influence that we have on people, that we have on others, that are following us, because consciously or unconsciously, that is what they also will become.
Yes.
Become. So exactly, so that's exactly my point now. So what would you prescribe to people who have been under the leadership of emotionally manipulative leaders? So as a follower, I have a boss who is emotionally manipulative. So what are, like, there are high tendencies that when I also become a leader, I might also want to reflect that. So what would you prescribe to such people who are still followers, who have not become leaders? So how can they navigate it presently as a follower, and also ensure that it doesn't resurface during their own leadership phase. So what would you advise?
Oh, yeah, great. Thank you very much. So let me also quickly try to put that emotional manipulation in perspective. Here we are looking at the act of influencing other people's feelings and behavior for one's own interest. So it basically means that the reasoning of the leader, trying to like get close to people, connect with them emotionally, their is to manipulate their feelings and behavior for his own interest. So
Yes.
anybody in that kind of environment, at the end of the day, it will get to a point that they will feel used, because by the time they come to their senses, they feel like, oh, it's like I'm being used by this person. It doesn't really care about me. I've thought out so much. We've been connected. It knows a whole lot about me, but at the end of the day, turning around and using those things again against me, they can get to a level where they get used. So basically, the first thing I would say to those person is, the first thing is to cut the flow. Is to cut the flow. You need to stop divulging your personal and emotional information, because in as much as you've not cut the flow, you are still pouring out. You will still give the leader more room and more opportunity, to manipulate you, emotionally. So the first thing is to cut the flow, and the second thing I also say to them is to have a kind of X-ray. They need to review the relationship thoroughly, sit down, evaluate the relationship, has it been mutually beneficial? What have you been able to gain from the relationship so far? How has your life turned out to be in this relationship at the end of the day? What have you been able to gain? The promises that the leader has made, in good times, has they been able to fulfill them? So where are you, in the line of the relationship? And the third thing I also say to them is to take a decisive decision. At that point, they need to take a decisive decision to review whether they want to terminate that relationship, if it is possible to terminate it. But if it's not possible, maybe it's a kind of boss to subordinate relationship where you don't have another job here that you can say, oh, I'm going to resume there. So you may not be able to terminate it there, but you also need to like refine the relationship, so that by the time you come to your senses and to the realization that no, this person is emotionally manipulating me, you need to be able to refine that relationship, so that you don't need to begin to open up deeply, to that person again. And you also need to begin to filter information, because it's pathetic. You might feel that, oh, people love me, they like me, as they used to say in my part of the world, that smile is not love. Somebody might smile at you. It doesn't mean that the person loves you. So in a situation where a leader is emotionally manipulating the followers, you need to filter information, so that you just don't open your mouth and pour out everything. And also, depending on the level of the emotional manipulation, you might need to seek help through counseling, because we don't know the level to which that has gone. Maybe it has gone so deep to the extent that it can cause a kind of serious emotional damage to the person. You might need to seek counseling. And finally, I also say to the person, don't shut the door. You don't have to shut the door, because a leader was emotionally manipulative doesn't mean that every leader is going to be emotionally manipulative. You don't, you still need to keep the door open. Treat that person as an individual, as an exceptional case, so that you don't begin to go around and looking at all leaders that come across the way and say, oh, who knows, if I open up at the end of the day, this person might turn out to be emotionally manipulative. It won't help, because who knows whether this person come with a genuine intention and to be able to like help you, to greater levels that you have really desired. But by the time you shut the door, who knows, you might be shutting the right person out.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that. So I was able to learn that first you cut out the flow. So do not allow people to still, predate on your feelings in that sense. So because they have information about you, they are able to do certain things for their own personal interest. So you should first cut out the flow, then define the relationship. So if it's a work relationship, let it end there. So information that pertains to your personal life shouldn't be divulged, because it's a work relationship and then seek help. So those were really profound tips for people that subordinate to emotionally manipulative leaders. Okay, now so coming back to Nada, from from all of the discussion, I mean, now I've been able to understand that emotional intelligence is a very wide, it encompasses a whole lot. So that would mean that the process of becoming emotionally intelligent must be rigorous, kind of, because it's not just a one strict thing. So you have to work on your leadership, you have to work on your confidence, you have to work on a whole lot of things. So, in your opinion, what would you suggest? Do you think it's the process of being emotionally intelligent, does it involve behavioral changes? So do I have to change very deep-seated behaviors because I want to be emotionally intelligent?
Yeah, that's a good question. And yes, 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 yes to all of it. So, it takes months. It takes months and it takes years to really build a strong sense of emotional intelligence, right? If it's not natural for you, because sometimes our experiences create a more emotional intelligence, right? So, for example, I was a performer for the first 8 years of my career, and I would perform in Russia, Japan, Morocco. Like, I performed everywhere. Those experiences added to my emotional intelligence because I had to learn how to shift. I had to learn how to communicate with different cultures and different people. So that enhanced my emotional intelligence, right? But if there's areas that you struggle with, then it takes time to shift the behavior. So, for example, the bucket that I struggle with the most is empathy, right? Empathy is the bucket that I have to work on the most because I'm very high functioning, I'm very motivated. My parents come from a third world country. And so in my brain, when somebody says, oh, I just can't do it, like, I don't understand that. Right?
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Yes, I can't understand why people aren't motivated, right? So I have to work on that and realize that, okay, everybody has different experiences, but you do have to work on every single little bucket, because remember that an emotionally intelligent person has pretty much mastered almost every pillar. Okay.
Yeah.
If somebody is really good at one bucket, they're not necessarily emotionally intelligent. They might just be really good at that. So I'm going to give a very extreme example. Okay. So let's talk about Trump, right? The president that we had a long time ago in the US. He was actually very emotionally intelligent when it came to influence. This is what Adeliki was talking about earlier. So he was strong in influence, right? He was able to influence people, but was it positive influence? Was it empathetic? Was it kind? No. So that means that his pillar, social awareness, which has empathy, wasn't that strong, right? And that means that his second pillar, self-management, which has integrity, right? Integrity also wasn't that strong because those are the components that were missing, but he could influence people, right? And so that goes back to what Adeliki says about you have to be able to positively influence people with that fourth pillar. And in order to do that, your first pillar, your third pillar, your second pillar, and your third pillar, they also have to be developed. Otherwise, you could influence people in not a good way. So I would say that, if somebody were to ask me what's the first bucket I should work on, I would say self-confidence. Because every single person has beliefs and thoughts in their mind about themselves. And when it's triggered by other people, our ego steps in. And when our ego steps in, then we lead based off of that. Okay. So now, if a team member, for example, says something to you and it triggers you and it makes you feel like you're not a good leader, you're going to respond in a very egocentric way that's not going to be the best. You're going to take advantage of your leadership position. You're going to say things like, I'm the leader, so you do what I say, right? You're going to say things like, don't question my authority. You're going to say things like, do you want to keep a job, right? So that's the ego coming in, but that's because the leader in their mind doesn't have confidence. They feel like, oh, they're questioning me. They don't think I'm a good leader. It's all that belief that's in our head, right? Now, if the leader is confident and the leader feels good in their skin, When a team member does something, they're going to respond differently. They might say, explain a little bit more. Why do you feel that way? How can we support you as a leadership team so that you are successful? Do you need more information? How can I provide more clarity? You see, my response is going to be very different.
Different, yes, yes. Wow, thank you so much for that. So from what you said, I could deduce that self-confidence is like the foundation of emotional intelligence. So it is not the entire package, but once you are self-confident, it rubs off, or once you are self-aware rather, it rubs off on other pillars of emotional intelligence. So thank you. That was a very brilliant one. So I hope that people are listening to this, because a lot of people have this misconception about emotional intelligence, such that they believe that emotional intelligence is just knowing their emotion. So I am angry now, deal with it. Like that is their own opinion. So like I know my emotion, right? Like they don't know that they are supposed to further this into a step where they are working on the on that defect or that flaw in that sense. So they're just aware, they're just self-aware, so they don't further this. So thank you so much for shedding light on this. So I would like coming to a conclusion now for you, Nada. I would want to know what you think is the importance. So like we already established, a lot of things go into becoming emotionally intelligent. So do you think it's worth the stress? Do you think it is important? Do you think certain people can just live with it? I mean, this is who I am. Do I have to change? Like the stress of going through, or the process rather, of going through being emotionally intelligent, do you think it is worthy? Like what is the ROI in that sense? So, like if I'm permitted to use that word, so
yeah, that's
do
a
you
good
think
question. Yeah, Damilola. So let me say this.
okay.
80%. So they did a lot of research on emotional intelligence. They found that 80% of individuals sabotage and destroy their success because they don't have emotional intelligence. Okay, so that's the ROI. So if you think
Yeah.
about it, when you think about this, when people get fired, when people get divorced, when people when all these things happen to people, emotional intelligence is the core of it, right? Something in their emotional intelligence was off, and therefore it caused some kind of barricade or some kind of destruction, right? So like my company and my team, we work with organizations all over the world. We're in over 50 countries. And I will tell you that even to this day, every time an executive says they have to fire somebody, it's not because they're not technically good. It's not because they don't know how to do their job. It's because they're not a good person when they do their job, or they're not motivated, or they create drama, or they have conflict, or they're constantly stressed and create anxiety. So it's all the people skills that are getting people in trouble, not the technical skills. So the ROI of emotional intelligence is really, really high, and it's really important for people to build it if they want to get successful. Now, I'll give you another example. Imagine, okay, I'll give you when I was a performer, an example. Imagine I walk into a room as a singer, and there's 300 singers, okay? Now, after a while, all the singers sound the same because we all have the same training, we all have the same degree. You see, we all have the same technical skill. So now the question is, if I have to pick one person to have that solo, who am I going to pick? Well, I'm going to pick the person that has the technique, but how are they going to stand out from everybody else that has the technique? They're going to have emotional intelligence. They know how to work a room. They know how to communicate with people. So you have to remember that every single person in the world is working hard to build technical skills, but what's going to make you stand out? What's going to help you become a leader? It's going to be the emotional intelligence.
Thank you so much for that. So I was also going to draw on that part, because I see a lot of youth investing so much in their technical competence. So people want to go to school, people want to go to institutes, to build up on their skill set. But in that sense, emotional intelligence is that skill that is able to rubbish all of your technical skills and competence if you don't So definitely, I mean, the ROI is quite high. That's 80% on. So yeah, definitely, it's a worthy training that every single individual, and then beyond the returns it brings to you, it makes the society a better place. So people are empathetic in that sense. People are loving. People are able to understand each other. So it brings more peace and a lot more value to the society. So that
Yes.
was
Yes. And that's why emotional intelligence it's not only important for the workplace, but it's important for your relationships. It's important for the community. It's important for the world. Like it really, if anybody wants to make change in this world, they have to build their emotional intelligence.
Thank you so much. So it's beyond leadership in that sense. So this discussion is beyond leadership. It comes to play in the family, it comes to play in workplace and several other outlets that human relationship features. Okay, so to bring this to an end, thank you, Nada. So to bring this to an end, Mr. Abiodo Adeleke, I want you to just give a final words on emotional intelligence. So what else do you think my questions have not been able to pick on that you still want to say, that you still want to put out there?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, this is a very well balanced discussion, but just hard from the perspective I'm coming from, that I believe that the protective policies need to be put in place to actually protect people from emotional manipulation. Should be put in place for leaders who have the tendency to be emotionally manipulative. In the workspace, there should be a policy, to protect people. Of course, if it's a personal relationship, of course, I can just choose to walk out. But in a work environment where probably you are building a career, you can't just walk out. So I believe, policies, should be put in place to protect people from leaders who have the ability to be emotionally manipulative.
Okay. So thank you so much for that. So that's an innovative area. So a lot of people are, putting in so much. So there's been a lot of discussion about upping your game when it comes to emotional intelligence. So like the government can also put up, how do I put it now, measures to ensure that people are emotionally intelligent, such that they do not rub off on other people. They do not scar other people with their own intelligent emotions in that sense.
Yep. I think we lost Damilola.
Yeah, I think we lost her too. Yeah.
That's okay.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, that was a really great conversation. Adeleke and Damilola did a great job and very,
that's great.
Yeah, very insightful.
Very much.
That was fantastic. Yeah, very good.
Yeah, Dami, are you back?
I think we
Okay.
still lost.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Thank you, Nada. This is a good thing. Thank you for coming up. Yeah, it's really a wonderful time. And I must confess, personally, I've learned. It doesn't matter how much you've learned. Okay, she's back now.
There we go.
Dami, sorry, we lost you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Are you back?
I cannot hear people. I mean, we are back to.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay, maybe you can just exit the studio and come back to the studio, because we can hear you, but it's unfortunate that you can't hear us.
Damilola, you're on mute.
I think we can't hear her.
Yeah, you're on mute, Damilola.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Nada. Thank you for coming up.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful time with you. It's been a wonderful time with you. And I must confess, I've really learned one or two things more, to whatever I felt I might have known before. And it's a great thing. It's a good thing. Thank you so much. We're happy to have you on board.
Yes. Thank you, Adeleke. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you.